Now, many of you have been here over the weeks leading up to Christmas Day through this time of Advent will have known that around the church we've been scattering little Christmas bags with gifts and messages of care and love to give out. And some weeks you might have taken those home to your own family, you might have taken one for a neighbour and given it to a friend or someone you know, maybe someone who you were going to visit or someone who came to visit you got one of these bags with just a small gift and a message of love. Now, they're not here today because today we're opening the big gift. Okay, so, and there's something different about that in that instead of taking something home, basically a bag of bickies and a few bits and pieces, we're going to take this gift home for your neighbours, for your friends, for your family, maybe for the people that you visit or for the people who visit you. And what's in this gift is Christ. Christ, a child, technically he's over here in our little manger. We have a baby. But that's the gift that we open this morning. The gift of Jesus Christ. God's Son given for each one of you, for your neighbours and for your friends. And in many ways, this morning's gift is the kind of gift that we sing about. It's the kind of gift of joy that we should be happy in receiving and excited about receiving. And that's what we have to share. Now, hopefully, some of you might have been given a gift this morning that you unwrapped before you came. Some of you might have been sneaky and unwrapped a gift or two last night. I know there are some impatient ones among us. And that you were joyed to receive it. And when you opened it, it was a surprise and something that you delighted in. And I hope that you can perhaps transfer something of the sensation, of the feeling and the thought of unwrapping a beautiful gift that brought you joy and those emotions that we have when we realise Christ has been given for us. Now, it's not really the kind of thing that you would write 1,000 words on or have a theological debate about. You know, when you get given a present and it's wonderful, you don't start going, oh, well, this would be lovely. I'm going to, set down a, pen and paper and I'm going to write a little article about it. No, what happens is something that just springs into your heart and into your mind. So we've been doing some singing, hopefully songs of joy that pick up something of what this day is about. But I do want to say a few words theologically, I guess, to unpack this gift, if you like, and think more deeply on it. If we were to go to bed every night and never give a second thought to the gifts we've received during the day, whatever they were, however big or small, we don't gain much out of them. Whereas if at the end of each day we were to give thanks for all our blessings, to count our blessings, as we used to say, we get more out of them. We receive more of them in the sense that we appreciate them. We take time to realise what they might mean and what it might have said from the person who gave it to us. And this morning is our opportunity to do that, to just take a moment and think of what God has done for us. Now, this year, we'll probably all remember, we took a census right across the country. And it wasn't just counting numbers, it was trying to get information about you and your household and what you do and where you go and what you like and what you don't like, as well as counting numbers. Throughout the Christian churches, we were encouraged to take a survey also of slightly deeper questions. And when the results of all of that comes back, there'll be one thing that might still surprise each one of us. That there is something like 90% of the people in our country would say they believe in God. Yet only maybe 10% of them will attend a church regularly or some kind of worship. They'll believe in God, but they'll only worship maybe 10% of those who believe. Interesting, isn't it? I'm looking forward to seeing what those stats say about our country and the people in it, and how that's changed over the last 5 years. But I know many of those people, us included, who say, well, we believe in God. Part of the question that we ask ourselves is, what does God look like? If we've had an experience of something bigger than ourselves, something that we decided was divine, something out there that we couldn't explain, we would ask the question, what does God look like? And possibly further, what does God expect of me? And the most important, though we may not all ask it, does God care about me? If I believe in God, and if that many people in Australia believe in some kind of God, that there's something out there they may not understand or they may not know or be able to give a name to, they might be asking those kind of questions. If God exists, what does he look like? If God exists, what does he expect of me? And if God does exist, does he even care about me? And there are reasons why we struggle to bridge the gap between us and God. Because we're not God. Can an infinite mind truly grasp the... can a finite mind truly grasp the infinite? The answer basically is no. We can't. So we have this gap between what we can comprehend and what God is. Many would try and therefore make God into something that they can attain, something that they can access, something that they can package up and make sense of, rather than leave as a mystery. But there's a name for a God that you can access through your own effort, and that's called an idol. The first commandment tells us that we're not to make an idol and worship idols, but we're to leave something of the mystery of God, something unexplained, something that we accept is beyond us and beyond our understanding. But still we long to see God. We long to know what he looks like and who he is. And pretty much every religion in the world offers an explanation, offers a way to get to God, that you might see God. But in Christianity, it's the only place, the only religion, if you like, that would say God, the infinite, took on our finitude. God became human to be like us. That God became like a babe in a small backwater place called Bethlehem. And he did so out of grace for our longing to know what God looks like, for our longing to be close to God and understand God. God has given us Jesus, a baby in a manger, born to an ordinary family. Astrid and I this week had an experience of grace, and it was an interesting one in that our dog, our very much loved dog, needed a cruciate ligament surgery. And unfortunately, she's had the left leg done earlier in the year. And because she's had to hobble on the right leg for much of this year, she's torn the other one. So we needed a second cruciate ligament operation, which was several $1,000s. We'd already spent all the money in the budget for the cruciate ligament surgery for our insurance. And so what we did was we asked our insurance company if they would pay for the second one, based on the fact that if we prolonged it and put it off until next year, she would be, further hurt and further damaged, and surgery that she would require would be even bigger. Now, they had allowed in our annual budget $3,200 for cruciate ligament operations. We'd spent $3,200. And do you know what their reply was when we asked for some more money to cover another operation? They wrote back and said, you have spent all the $3,200 in your annual allocation. So we will give you an ex gratia payment of $3,200 towards the second operation. And Astrid came into the shed where I was hiding and said, what does ex gratia mean? They can't give us the $3,200. They say we've spent that. What does ex gratia mean? It means out of grace. It means out of grace. I was going to offer that we paid next year's premium now and started a whole new year. I thought that would be a good sort of a compromise. That we'd pay the extra premium and they would cover us for another year, starting this week. But out of their grace, they said they would just pay it anyhow. We haven't even paid for next year, and they said out of good grace, they would give us that extra. And what that means is we didn't deserve it. There's no loophole in the contract that we can point to and say, because of this we should have it, or it's our right to be paid this. No, there was no rights and there was no loopholes. We hadn't earned it in any way. And it was only out of their graciousness, goodness of their heart, that they gave us the extra. Now, it's unlikely enough for an insurance company to pay out when they don't need to, when they're not legally obliged to. It was a gift of grace to us and to our dog and to our family. Christ, however, is much bigger than that. And even more unlikely, if you would like to think of it that way. God provides what we longed for, even though we didn't really earn it, we didn't deserve it, we hadn't needed it. We should have been able to get by without it, just trusting faithfully in God. But God sent Christ to us that we might know what he would look like. That when he would grow up from being a babe in a manger, he would be like us, human. Now, we all know that God is not human. We know that God is immortal and invisible and omnipotent and omnipresent, omniscient even. All these fancy words that really mean that God is distant. God is completely other from us. Oh, sorry, that means God is all-powerful, all-knowing and all-present. I'm sure you use those in everyday language, don't you? Sorry. Those words, even by their length, if you like, suggest that God is quite other from us. God is hard to reach from here until we met Jesus, a babe at Bethlehem, who grew up to be a teacher and a healer, a discipleship maker. He was not a disembodied spirit that sort of floated around and said, this is what God is like. No, he was a person. He was real. He was human and involved in real human lives. When he saw hunger, he offered bread. If he'd been around your street and you had a party, he would have come. If the wine had run out, he would have made more. This was not an escape from the world that Jesus offered. You know, for your troubles, here's an escape route. Or when things get tough, here's an escape route. Rather, when Jesus came, he got involved. In fact, intruded into the ordinariness of our lives. And modelled a way to live in this life. In loving God. Do you want to know the truth? The truth of Christmas. And it's that God is for you. God is here for you. If you are ever asking that question, does God have a kind face? Does he wear a smile when I walk into the room? A welcoming embrace for me, knowing all that I've done in my life or not done in my life, where I've come from and how I've lived? The answer is simple. Come to Bethlehem and see. Come and see. Come and see the face of God in a child that would stretch out a hand to grab your finger, in a child that would need you to love it, in a child that would need your protection and your care, your family to surround and embrace. There's an interesting thing where a sign like this is in fact the message that God sends. The way that God sends the message tells us something. That God would send his love to us, his image of who he is, in a child that we could welcome. That would be so cute we'd want to pick it up and embrace it. That's the kind of person God is. If you want to see the face of God, come to Bethlehem and see.